For some people, a job is a means to an end. For me, my work is an expression of my soul's purpose, that all of us are able to embrace our wholeness in our lives, in our bodies, in our relationships. And that also means embracing the pain and the suffering. We cannot live consistently powerful, purposeful lives when we are in the grips of suffering. And we are in the grips of suffering so much of the time. Every time we hold ourselves back and we play small, we're in the grips of suffering. Every time we act like we're strong and we can handle anything and we don't actually receive, we're suffering. And every time we want to reach out for help, but we don't for fear of disappointment, that suffering is literally hijacking your brain, your nervous system, your sleep, your life. For me, that suffering, it was in my sensitivities. I was so sensitive to other people's emotions, to light, to so many things. And so I began to numb and I began to distract. There was a time in my life where I moved literally every 6 months to a year, to a new country, to a new job. I was always distracting myself with beautiful things. And I saw them. I stood on the top of the Himalayan mountains and saw that majesty and that awe. And yet, while being there, it barely penetrated that shield of numbness in my life. So what about your life? How many of you are missing out on the joy of life because you're numb? How many birthdays and anniversaries and orgasms have you not felt? Have you not experienced? You just glossed over. Coming back to life, de-thawing from that numbness is hard, especially without the tools and without someone to help you, which is why I love playing with suffering. I love it because I know that on the other side of it, that is where your joy is. That is where your wholeness is. That is where your life is. One of the most joyful ways that I know to play with suffering, and you can play, it doesn't have to be hard work, is with horses. Have any of you ever felt judged? Have any of you judged yourself? Jake and the other horses that I work with, and the ones I haven't yet, they're not judging you. They don't care what you look like. They don't care what you say. They want to know, will you show up with me the way I'm willing to show up with you? Will you show up with me the way I'm willing to show up with you? How many people do you know who are willing to show up in that way with you? So after a decade of working with people as a therapist, 3 patterns have emerged from the research and from my clients. The first is that we all suffer, and that suffer comes from feeling unsafe. The second is that when you integrate science and spirit, we can actually override the mechanisms of suffering and access our joy, our wholeness, and our lives and vitality. And third is that our suffering doesn't just hurt us. It hurts our children and our communities. And that's not okay with me. It's not okay that we're abusing ourselves and others. It's time for something different. Would you be willing to reclaim your body and your mind, your heart and your soul? Are you ready to embrace all of you and finally access your joy? I hope so, because we need you.